Hello, my name is Jason Shepard, and I'm the VP of Ecosystem for a company called Zededa. We're based in San Jose, California, and we've been partnering closely with Advantech on how we can scale IoT edge computing. So, compute located outside of a data center, but still capable of running apps. Of the embedded compute that Advantech has been so well known for over the years. Our specific focus is on orchestrating applications and hardware out in the field, very much purpose built for that IoT edge. And we'll talk more about that as we go. Um, Obviously, edge computing is a big trend right now. So many devices coming online, more data everywhere. Internet of Things has been driving it. Lots of reasons for it that I won't get into, but we definitely see bandwidth as one of the big reasons. Latency, of course, security, autonomy, privacy. But it's just expensive to move data around unnecessarily. So you're going to see more processing local to sources. Computer vision is one of the killer apps for edge computing today. Any kind of high bandwidth streaming data. But we think it's here to stay. It's not like the cloud's going away. It's just more compute everywhere. We think it's important to think about how you architect for edge computing. So there's three key areas of abstraction that we think is important. So number one, make sure that your data, your applications, and your domain knowledge, the ultimate value add of solutions that drive these outcomes, is separate from your infrastructure. You want consistent infrastructure that you can then apply the right domain knowledge to, the necessarily unique hardware and software. No one wins if we keep reinventing the middle. You also want to decouple your edge data sources from any given backend, whether it's on-prem or in the cloud, the moment data is created. If you do that, then all permutations from edge to cloud work. You don't want to get locked in too early to one solution. And the last one is you want to extend, cloud native principles into more places. So this is the notion of platform independent, loosely coupled microservices. If you do that with more of a common foundation, you can deploy best-in-class services and software functions alongside your own innovations, and you don't have to reinvent everything. You can kind of mix and match and scale that way. And you have to recognize when things need to be embedded for safety critical or time critical systems, latency critical systems. But the more you can have that flexibility, the better. And this is all stuff that LF Edge is really focused on within Linux Foundation, that community. And our foundation, Project Eve, is within that collection of projects in LF Edge. Very much about building more of a kind of a core layer for IoT and edge computing that helps facilitate interoperability and enables customers to focus on value versus reinvention. So I'll talk real quick about kind of where we see things headed. So, IoT was, the big conversation in around 2015 up till about now. Edge computing has been the big conversation for the past few years. And where we see this is headed as more and more data hits online, we see more and more fake data being spread by the acceleration of AI. We think that data confidence is the next big conversation. And to get there, you must have some level of openness and transparency. And that's not only to combat fake data, but also to generate new business value through interconnected ecosystems. All these different use cases in retail and manufacturing and healthcare and insurance start to appropriately interconnect, but also protecting privacy at the same time. So much value to be generated over time with these types of solutions. There's a vision video at this site called alvarium.org. It's actually a video that I produced with my team around this notion of data confidence fabrics. And we see this as kind of the vision for the future. And for that, you need to follow some of these architectural principles as an end user to get there over time. So it's a longer term vision, but we think it's really important to be thinking today about how you get there. So defining the edge. So edge is a very broad term. A lot of people get confused because they're talking about different edges, they'll say thin and thick, near and far, very ambiguous terms. This is a really good white paper that was put out by LF Edge about 2 months ago that defines the edge based on inherent technical trade-offs. And long story short, there's different paradigms across the continuum. You have very similar principles for management, orchestration, et cetera, but different tools because some devices are more constrained, some devices are outside of physically secure data centers, et cetera. So what the area that we focus on, which is very aligned with Advantech, is embedded compute, IoT edge compute, as we call it. Compute deployed outside of a physically secure data center, but still capable of running apps. So that's about 256 megs of memory up to a small server cluster, on a manufacturing floor out in a wind turbine somewhere on a retail shop floor or whatever. in that smart device edge, as defined in the paper, there's client devices, phones, tablets, PCs, iOS, Android, Windows, very well established ecosystems. But in the IoT sense, headless servers, gateways, hubs, routers, etc., very, very fragmented. And so our foundation is all about how do I create a universal abstraction layer to simplify orchestration of those assets. So these edges are complex. I mean, very, very, distributed. These are the types of locations you would see your compute. From an Advantech standpoint, all of the customers that are deploying embedded compute. It's tricky to go orchestrate these types of devices out in the field, especially as you drive more and more applications to them, and that creates more value in that information that's being processed locally. So Zededa was formed about a few years ago, late 2016. A lot of background in our founding leadership around networking, compute, open source. You'll see a lot of our foundation is based in open source. And I came from Dell Technologies. I was CTO for IoT and Edge. I joined last November to drive our ecosystem efforts. Invested in by Lux Capital, Energize, recently Rockwell Automation, and also EDF, who's an energy organization out there, energy provider. And so lots of really good backers and have been developing our solution for a while and increasingly working with Advantech on it, as I mentioned. So think of our solution, it's all about IoT edge orchestration. So hardware and applications, we're not in the data path at all. We're all about just that foundational capability. And it's very rooted in an open model. So our base foundation called Eve, Project Eve, is a project within LFEdge, within the Linux Foundation, completely vendor neutral governance, open source. That foundation provides abstraction from any hardware, ARM, x86, any co-processing, GPUs, TPUs, FPGAs. It seems like every day of the week there's a new AI accelerator out there. And then you take your pick of applications. And very important is we support both virtual machines and containers on your choice of hardware. So that means you can take a legacy SCADA application or point of sale system running on Windows or any flavor of Linux and put it right next to a modern containerized workload, that cloud native component as you extend it. And so we're all about providing agility at the IoT edge, how you distribute and scale hardware with your choice of backend. It could be on-prem or sending data to a cloud, whichever one makes sense for your use case. We monetize the cloud component. So we offer a SaaS-based cloud console that connects to Eve. It has an open API, so you're not just locked into our console, but we provide that full package. And we're working with Advantech to have Eve pre-installed on Advantech hardware. So when you ship it out, it's very easy to get installed. And we have this concept of an app store, so you can deploy apps immediately to that box once you've got a secure connection spun up. And then we also can be white labeled, so we could sell the whole package to an OEM that's building their own solutions for their customers. Really, really flexible. Eve has functions for distributed firewall. We can make it to where apps can only talk to other apps on the box based on proxy or policy. This app can only talk to that cloud. This is important when you're distributed outside of a physically secure data center. You don't necessarily have a network perimeter. You don't have a firewall necessarily. We have everything rooted in TPM or any kind of root of trust that you have. So measured boot, encryption, crypto-based ID for the box, lots and lots of features that are really important for end users that are working out in the field. Zededa Advantage, we call it the 3 Z's. So zero touch, zero limits, like complete flexibility, what you use with our foundation. Zero touch, we have made it very easy to install even if you don't have IT skills. You take a mobile app, you scan a QR code, it gets you secure dial tone based on a crypto ID from that TPM. You log in, you start deploying apps, and you're done. And then you can have full visibility into that hardware and the apps remotely. Zero trust, as I mentioned, everything's based off of TPM. It's built from the ground up for being deployed securely outside of physically secure data centers. So, easy way to look at Eve, that smart device I just talked about in the white paper includes, client devices and IoT component. Eve would do for the IoT edge what Android has done for mobile. Create a consistent foundation to build an ecosystem off of. So we think it's really important that we're collaborating out there in open source. Zededa contributed Eve to LF Edge, but now there's about 50 unique contributors. Intel, Xilinx, other companies have been participating. TimeSys, Advantech actually started to contribute in terms of upstreaming Linux drivers. So we just see more and more pickup here to make it the one stack you need on edge hardware, and then can take your pick of applications on top. It's all about that flexibility. Really important to look at the architectural approaches. So there are proprietary solutions that are sort of similar to what we do, but then you're locked into that cloud offer only. And then the solutions at the IoT edge today, they only focus on containers or VMs, not both. So that's an important difference. There's also agent-based solutions where, yeah, you can drop an agent on your choice of OS, but if you don't do a lot of work to integrate that agent with the OS, you can create security risks. Or you might brick that device in the field and have to drive a truck out and replace it. We've basically combined the agent and the OS together with Eve, and that gives you all the benefits. And of course, by it being open, it's got some extra advantages in terms of not getting locked in. So an example deployment. So we see all the time, people that have legacy systems that want to deploy a next to modern new types of software. So like a video management solutions for surveillance, very Windows based today. And then there's modern AI containers being developed that you deploy for facial recognition or license plate detection. We can run both workloads concurrently and have data fed through, and then maybe ultimately up to a cloud like Azure. And we just orchestrate that base, bare metal foundation on top of the hardware, and then whatever the apps that you want to run on top. And it's just this hybrid workload consolidation that we think is really important as people work to kind of transition from legacy to modern. So in a traditional industrial IoT layered network, we see three common deployment patterns that we can help with, combined especially with Advantech hardware. So number one, it's deploying boxes at any point in the network for segmenting from other parts of the network, whether it's all on the OT side or between the OT and IT side. How do you make sure that traffic is flowing where it's supposed to go and protect the process at all costs? Number two is we see people deploying boxes across the network with security tools on top of our foundation, like a Nozomi Guardian or something like that do OT protocol inspection, looking for anomalies and providing more granular visibility into what's happening on that network. And the last one is classic workload consolidation. Any mix of VMs and containers, gateways, compute, or edge compute, embedded compute, servers, hubs, routers, it doesn't matter. We provide that universal abstraction layer, and then as you can see, Zededa's that common orchestration cloud to be used with your choice of apps and backends for the data path. So we see customers in a variety of different markets: oil and gas, energy, both utilities and renewables, retail increasingly. Had some customers in healthcare. Manufacturing. The attraction is that ability to run legacy and more modern workloads, cloud native workloads concurrently, that open model, the security model. We have a lot of folks that are using us to do secure proxy from a wind turbine to their cloud, but also deploy apps for things like predictive maintenance, acoustic monitoring of sounds in the cowl of the wind turbine to see if there's any anomalies. Manufacturing, we actually recently sold into a large manufacturer with Advantech. They loved the fact that they could segment their data from the process below, make sure to protect the process, but also feed that data into Azure IoT. So we're seeing a lot of customers across the board. Our role here is about that orchestration. We're building an ecosystem of value add for our customers, actually working with a number of the same ISVs as Advantech, and we're looking to grow our channels. We're very much looking forward to working with more of the Advantech channel. How do we solve customer problems? How do we provide the right recommendations? We could just provide the orchestration solution if they're building their own solutions. And like I said, we can be OEM'd or white labeled, but it really is about providing that base. We can be used with any hardware, but we're building a better together story with Advantech as a strategic partner. Our whole role here is bringing cloud agility to the IoT edge, help people modernize during a transition period, provide that visibility, orchestrating hardware and software at scale, And together with Advantech, I think we provide like the most flexible, comprehensive portfolio. The strength of Advantech's hardware portfolio, many years in the embedded space as a leader there. Our focus on embedded compute at the IoT edge. How do you scale it and deploy it, and securely and deploy your choice of apps? So just think we have a lot that we can do in the market together. With that, there's more information on Zededa.com. Thank you for listening, and always glad to answer questions. And we look forward to continuing to collaborate with Advantech and Advantech's customers and partners together. So thanks for listening.